Elsa was a little surprised. She hadn't expected Harold to actually have some real connections in Orris Hill. Compared to Charlie, he seemed so much more capable. It seemed like getting to know Orris Hill through him would make things a lot easier for her. The man in black respectfully led everyone to the door of the diamond box. Then he took out a clipboard, handed it directly to Charlie, and said softly, "Sir, could you please sign for the room?" This diamond box was reserved specifically for Charlie, and he needed to sign to confirm it. Charlie smiled and took the pen and paper. He was just about to write his name when Harold's voice cut in. "Hey! Put the pen down!" Harold stormed over, snatched the pen and paper from Charlie's hand, scribbled his own name down, and yelled at Charlie, "Are you kidding me? Who do you think you are? I'm the one who booked this room. What gives you the right to sign for it?" The man in black was completely stunned. He looked at Charlie with a questioning expression, as if to ask, "Should I take care of this guy for you?" Charlie said calmly, "It's fine. If he wants to sign, let him." In front of Elsa, Charlie didn't want to make things too awkward. After all, she was his wife's best friend. Soon, everyone was seated inside the private room. Harold made sure Elsa sat at the head of the table, while Charlie sat alone in a corner. Only Elsa spoke to him from time to time. Before long, waiters began bringing out incredible dishes. Every dish was made with the finest ingredients. The finest Maine lobster, and even 10-pound Maine lobsters were just supporting dishes here. Elsa was no stranger to luxury, but even she was shocked by how extravagant this meal was. "Harold, how much did this meal set you back?" Harold said triumphantly, "My budget for this was $300,000. Gerald said in surprise, "This is way more than $300,000. Harold was secretly alarmed and suddenly felt like something wasn't right. Thinking back on how the man in the black suit had acted, could it be that Orville had given him some kind of special treatment? But that was impossible. He'd never even met the guy. Elsa's beautiful eyes sparkled. She glanced at Harold and said, "Harold, thank you." When Harold heard Elsa's words, he smiled and said, "It's nothing, really. This is how it should be." With that, Harold smirked and asked Charlie, "Charlie, I bet you've never eaten anything this good in your life, have you?" Charlie sneered, "What makes you so sure? If you've ever had a meal like this before, I'll eat my own hat." Charlie just smiled, saying nothing. Seeing Charlie's silence, Wendy said angrily, "Charlie, what's with your attitude? How dare you talk to my brother like that? You want me to have you thrown out? Because I will. We're generous enough to let you eat with us." However, at that very moment, the door to the private room was kicked wide open, and a harsh voice yelled, "Who let you into this room?" As soon as he finished speaking, a man in a suit and a thick gold chain stepped in. A nasty, centipede-like scar ran from the corner of his eye all the way down to his chin. This man held a bill in one hand and a wooden club in the other, his face fierce and menacing. Everyone was stunned and panicked. What was going on? The leader was a man named Blake, Orville's right-hand man. He'd made his name fighting alongside Orville back in the day and was a well-known figure in Orris Hill. This time, Orville had told him that the extremely important Mr. Charlie would be using the diamond box at the mansion and that he needed to make sure everything was arranged perfectly. But he never thought that when he was checking on the rooms, he would discover that the diamond box was signed for by Harold Wilson. He was furious, but also terrified. He was raging that this damn Harold had taken over the room he had prepared for a very important guest. He was terrified. The real guests were on their way, and there was only one banquet table set up in the diamond box. If his guest of honor arrived and saw this, he was a... What was he supposed to do? At that moment, Harold stood up and demanded, "What do you think you're doing? I reserved this room. Why are you busting in here making trouble?" Blake pointed a finger at Harold. "Are you Harold Wilson?" Harold nodded proudly. "I am," Blake said coldly. "Bring him to me." Hearing this, two huge, muscular guys grabbed Harold and dragged him forward. "What are you doing? Get your hands off me!" Blake's cold eyes stared down at Harold, his glare as sharp and chilling as a knife. The sign-in sheet was thrown right at Harold's head. Blake snarled, "Who gave you permission to use this room?" Harold, trying to act calm, said, "There must be some misunderstanding. I booked the gold box in advance, and I paid the $300,000 deposit." Gerald chimed in, "Yeah, what's your problem? Harold booked this room. Don't you guys have any rules? The gold box. This is the diamond box. It's for our most distinguished guests." As soon as he said that, everyone froze. The diamond box? It turned out they weren't in the gold box at all. Gerald broke out in a cold sweat. The diamond box was for people so far above him he wasn't even qualified to set foot inside, let alone use it. Wendy quickly said, "Brother, you know Mr. Hudson, right? Hurry up and explain to them." Harold, terrified, shrieked, "Shut up! What are you talking about? Someone like me would never know Mr. Hudson." "But you just said," Wendy started. Elsa watched the siblings argue, finally realizing that everything Harold had said before was just bragging. She felt a wave of disappointment. Blake sneered, "You dare to drop Mr. Hudson's name? You guys have some nerve." He stood up and barked an order to his men. "Hold this man's hand down. I'm going to teach him a lesson." Harold was immediately pinned, unable to move. My hand is broken," Harold screamed, sweat pouring down his face. Seeing this, Gerald and Wendy turned pale with fear. Harold, who had been so full of himself just a moment ago, had been taken down in an instant. How could they not be terrified? Elsa was scared too, shaking all over. She hid behind Charlie and whispered in horror, "What are we going to do?" Charlie patted her on the shoulder and said calmly, "Don't be afraid. I'm here. No one will touch you." Elsa glanced at Charlie, grateful. Even though she knew he couldn't possibly solve a problem like this, his words still made her feel a little bit safer. Blake turned his head and looked at Gerald. "And you're the one who said I don't have any rules, right?" Gerald was so scared that he started shaking. "Blake," he stammered, "I'm with the White family." "The White family?" Blake grinned. "Who cares about the White family? Mr. Hudson himself just taught some from the White family a lesson yesterday, and you have the nerve to use their name in his place?" "What?" Gerald was suddenly terrified. He thought his brother had been attacked by some gangster, but he never expected that it was actually Orville who beat him. Wendy screamed in horror. Gerald was her fiancé, her only ticket into the White family. If something happened to him, her life would be ruined. "An ambulance! Someone call an ambulance!" Wendy yelled, panicking. She shakily pulled out her phone, but she was too scared to even dial, so she just kept screaming. "You dare make a call? Shut her up. Let's see how she talks then." Wendy panicked and scrambled backward, but her back hit the wall. There was nowhere to go. Seeing how cruel Blake was, Elsa trembled again, pressing herself against Charlie's back. The two of them were huddled together. Just then, Blake spotted Charlie and Elsa in the corner and barked an order. "And those two, they dared to take over the diamond box I had set aside for my special guests. They're just as guilty."
"Who the you think you are?"
he snarled. Charlie said calmly, "I'm someone you can't afford to cross." Charlie shook his head and dialed Orville's number. "Mr. Hudson, I'm in the diamond box right now. Get down here immediately." After he said that, Charlie hung up and looked at Blake coldly. Elsa's face was pale. Harold had just bragged about knowing Mr. Hudson, and look how horribly that turned out. Now Charlie was saying such disrespectful things right to Blake's face. He was going to get himself. Blake sneered. "You dare disrespect Mr. Hudson in front of me? You must have a... or you're just plain As soon as he finished speaking, Blake waved his hand to his men and said viciously, "Take him out for me." Suddenly, a voice boomed from outside the room. "Blake, are you trying to get yourself... You dare to touch Mr. Charlie?" Blake froze, looking like he'd been struck by lightning.
To know more, listen to the audio series Heir in Hiding, only on the Pocket FM app.